welcome to another episode of Nite Bigfoot Radio. It's March 20th, 2017, and it is the beginning of spring, and it feels more like summer here. How about you, Lauren? Is it the same thing to you? Hot.
91 degrees here today in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am one of those stupid Oklahomans that packs my summer clothes away and regrets it every year because it gets hot throughout the winter. So I vow next year I'm not going to do that. So learned my lesson. Took 29 years, but I learned my lesson.
Well, I do the same thing only because I don't have room in my closet for all my clothes. That's my deal. So anyway, we want to ask everyone out there to keep Jeff in your prayers. He did not get a good report from the doctor. The West Nile apparently done more than we thought it was going to do to him. And so anyway, I don't really know all the details. I just know that he needs prayers. So all you prayer warriors out there, please keep Jeff Stewart in your prayers. And Lauren, do you have anything new to share with our listeners tonight?
Nothing really Bigfoot related. Yeah, no.
I don't really either.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, I've been too busy. But, you know, I did want to mention, Lauren, that I hadn't had a chance to tell you this. Do you know that Mark preached yesterday?
Did he really?
Filled in for the pastor. He sure did. He was a natural. I couldn't believe it.
Awesome. I thought you were going to tell me you had another run-in with your naked Bigfoot or whatever that was.
Whatever that creepy thing was. No, have not seen anything. No. No, it's been, yeah. Well, anyway, I'm ready. I'm pumped to talk to Duke here, and so tell you what, why don't you just go ahead and do the intro, and we'll go ahead and bring Duke on.
Okay. Batman? Question mark. Emdale question mark.
What?
All right. Somebody in the chat asked who we were talking about, and I told him Jeff and our co-host, and he said, "What's wrong with Batman?" Anyway.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nite Bigfoot Radio presents Brian, a.k.a. Duke, Sullivan from Montana. Duke is a Bigfoot researcher from the state of Montana. He saw his first Sasquatch in 1972 when he was 10 years old. Duke has been researching for 43 years now and has had 3 Class A sightings and numerous close encounters. Duke Sullivan's most recent sighting was in the summer of 2015 in Montana. The previous 2 were in northern Minnesota in the winter of 1972 and the summer of 1977. His interest in Bigfoot revolves around how and why they do things, rather than trying to prove they exist, which is pretty awesome, or what they are. 2 exercises in futility, in his opinion. Duke's Facebook Bigfoot group is Montana Bigfoot Project. He also hosts a podcast called World Bigfoot Radio and field research videos. Last season's output is available at World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube. This year's episodes/field videos are being posted to his home YouTube channel, Brian Sullivan, the YouTube channel. Duke is also a conspiracy theorist and has collaborated with Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles on programs such as Duke's Conspiracy Corner and the Renegade podcast. He has guested on the Sasquatch Chronicles many times and has been on the Bigfoot Outlaws twice also. For Duke's latest video, you can visit him. You can go to the YouTube, which I will gladly put in the chat, and you can also check out on our Blog Talk page and Facebook. I would like to say that he just did a show on Sasquatch Chronicles, a panel, and he says that it was a really great one, so you guys need to go check it out. And let's welcome Duke from Montana.
Okay, and before we bring Duke on, I want everyone to know that you're welcome to call in. The number is 347-989-0313. And be sure to press 1 so we know that you have a question and you're not just listening in. And we've never had a researcher from Montana, so this is very exciting. We have just about done every state in the United States, but not Montana. And, of course, he's not really a researcher. He is more, I think, trying to learn about them. So, anyway, let's bring him on so he can tell us himself. You want to unmute him, Miss Lauren?
I'm sorry. Of course I do. Okay.
Hi, Duke. Is it Duke or Brian? Which do you want to be called?
Yeah, just call me Duke. The only people who used to call me Brian, that was my parents, and they're both deceased, and all my friends have been calling me Duke for decades, so just go with Duke.
Okay, Duke. Welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. We are delighted to have you on tonight.
Well, thanks so much for having me on your show, and greetings to both of you ladies, and hello to all your fans out there, all your listeners.
Thank you. So, yeah, wow, I just completely went blank. Okay. You live in this. Does that ever happen to you, Duke? I know you do a podcast, but you probably have you probably get to edit your podcast. We do it live, and so it's good Lord. Sometimes it's what you get, you know.
Actually, yeah, I do. I pre-record most all the stuff that I do, and interestingly enough, I used to actually do live radio. So sometimes when I'm on other people's shows that do them pre-recorded, I forget that they actually have the capacity to edit. And and they go, oh, yeah, well, don't worry about that one little part there. We could take it. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. You're not live. Okay. But, so, yeah, most of the time when I do a show with somebody, I do an interview with them, there's very little that gets cut out of it anyway because, I'm pretty good at keeping the conversation flowing or filling in blank spots. That's part of your job as a DJ or something if you're on the radio. No dead air. Dead air is a no-no.
Yes,
So,
yes it is. It's
we work really hard. We work really hard to keep that from happening.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, most people have no idea how difficult it is to actually do a live show. I mean, my hat's off to you ladies. I'm glad that I can pre-record.
Well, thank you, though. Thank you for giving us that kudos there. Because we've never told anyone how hard it is because we don't want to sound like whiners. But I'm telling you.
People that haven't actually done it are under the impression that all you do is just sit there and talk into a microphone. How tough can it be? But believe you me, folks, when you've actually done it live on the air with a potential listening audience of about 2 million, you get real fidgety about making these stupid mistakes. And you learn real fast to not make them. Again, hats off to anybody that does a live show.
Yeah, we try real hard not to think about how many people are actually listening. Yes. Because then it's like, we don't think about that, you know.
just to keep yourself from getting too freaked out, just imagine all of them have naked ears. And then you won't get as scared by the whole thing.
The worst is that we can't control what our guest says. You know, all the other shows on air right now can edit out, if they say, Bigfoot, is my girlfriend and we have babies. And, we go portal jumping and cloak ourselves. They can edit that out. We can't edit that out.
We joined hands and put on our glittery miniskirts and danced through the portal.
We can't do that. Wow. We have to just, kind of change the subject or mute them or hang up on them.
And you have to learn how to steer them.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, we have an interesting community, and there's a lot of different viewpoints in it. And, part of the reason for it is because so very little about these things can actually be proven. There's very little the community can actually agree on, and the rest of it's all suppositions. So, some of them use their imaginations a lot.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
I try to keep an open mind because we don't know what they are, and I feel like keeping an open mind is about the only way we can learn something, but I do have my lines that I draw in the sand, Anyway, but yes.
I'm all about trying to get to some kind of a unity going in the community, so I try and keep an open mind and be, pretty nice to everybody, whether I agree with their opinions or not.
Right.
Everybody can have their own opinion. Until somebody has one locked in their garage that they're studying, that we just don't have any actual good information on them, so everybody's entitled to think what they want.
Yeah.
Well, the feedback I get is, you are such a nice lady. I hear that all the time. You are so nice and so kind. And I'm thinking, well, I have to be on the show because you sure don't want to get a guest on and be ugly to them. I mean, or pin them against the wall. Even if we have a guest on that doesn't know anything, and sometimes we get those. We really thought they knew more, but they really don't. And so we really have to do a lot of filler, our own experiences, whatever we have to do. But we're here to talk to you.
Yeah,
we're here to talk to you.
I'm on the spot now.
Here we go.
You are.
Get ready.
But what I'm excited about is I want to hear about your experience when you were 10 years old. You know that you're not the first 10-year-old. You're not the first 10-year-old that has seen one. And I'm wondering if your story is the same one I've heard out there. But let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Well, I'll tell you, before I go into the story, first a minor correction for the intro is that although I do live in Montana and I am doing research out here, I'm originally from northern Minnesota. And that's where my first encounter happened. And like most little kids, and being in northern Minnesota, you probably get into sledding or skiing, or maybe both, because, of course, there's snow there 9 months of the year, 3 months of rough sledding.
Yeah.
So, so it's perpetual winter. When the snow finally melts, you get eaten alive by mosquitoes and pray for it to start snowing again. So we're really used to being out in the woods, being out there when it's cold, didn't make any difference to us. And we had a day where it got kind of warm. This was February in 72, and one of my friends was out visiting, and I said, hey, let's go back to that big hill back there. I mean, maybe we can get across that swamp over to it. We never did check and see how high it is. We can probably get back there today. Weather's nice, won't freeze. Let's go check it out. So we went back there, and the slough in between was like a bog, basically, and unless it was really cold and frozen over, there was no way to get across it. Even with snowshoes, you couldn't go across it. And we laid down on our sleds. It was frozen solid because there had been lots of below zero for weeks. And pushed our way across the thing, got to the other side, tromped up to the top, and found at the top of this hill that there was another hill. And so we clomped up to the top of that and found at the top of that there was a third hill. Went way up to the top of that and went, wow, this is like the ultimate sledding hill. We need to build a sledding run right here. And he's like, yeah, we should do that. And I'm like, well, it's warm right now. We can pack the snow. We can make supers. Let's do it. And then after it freezes again, we'll come back here and use it. And he's like, oh, yeah. So we were making noise. We spent 2-3 hours out there, built ourselves an awesome luge run going down this hill. Made, extra careful. We had big supers on the 2 banks that we had on there for the 2 turns, because otherwise you would have run off and hit a tree, no question about it. So, but we're used to doing this. We grew up there. We were doing this stuff all the time. So about 2 days later, it got cold again. It was 20 below. It was a nice, bright, sunny afternoon. And we said, let's go back, check out our new giant luge run, and not let anybody else know, because now we have our own luge run. We don't have to have a zillion people there on it with us all the time, getting in the way. And the only thing that we had as far as the idea of safety is that one of us should only go down at a time. So if they get seriously mangled, the other one can throw them on the sled and drag them back to the house again. Okay.
Right.
So we're taking turns. First time we go down, we're dragging our feet and our hands and stuff, slowing down a little bit because it's really steep, and we're really scared. And we still end up going too fast at the bottom. And so we go down a second time, and we're changing things a little bit. And I think it was the third time. I got back up to the top of the hill, and I put my sled down about 4 or 5 feet back from the lip of the hill, and it's taken a few steps back behind that. I was going to do, a little bit of a faster run, get a little bit of a walking start, jump on the sled and go down the hill and see if I could make it at full speed, more or less. And I just got this feeling that something was wrong, and now that I'm older, I realize that something was watching me, and that was the feeling that I was getting. But I twice looked back over my shoulder, looked over my right shoulder, and scanned the top of the hill and didn't really see what it was I was looking for. And the third time I looked back, I noticed that off to my right, if I was facing away from the hill, it'd be on my right-hand side. Most of this was all hardwood, so it was pretty open. You could see through it. This is the middle of the winter. There's no leaves. There was this huge black spruce tree, and it had 3 trunks on it. And that isn't exactly what caught my attention, although that was one of the tip-offs, is that 2 of the 3 trunks had long gray-white fur on them. And so the first thing that popped into my mind is trees don't have 3 trunks, and they don't have fur or hair. What is this?
Yeah.
So I looked up a little bit. First, the next thing that popped into my mind is, well, somebody's got like some snow pants on here, because back in those days you used to have snowmobile suits that were, like one piece, and they had snow pants with fur on the outside of them and all kinds of goofy stuff that people could wear.
Yeah.
So I figured it was somebody with a pair of furry snow pants, and they were like sneaking behind the tree there watching us, and oh, damn it, how did anybody find our sledding run already? And how's that even possible? There's no other trails out here, So I looked up about 5-6 feet, getting ready to be really mad at some teenager that found out about our sledding run. But 5-6 feet up, there's nothing there. And I'm like, well, what's he doing standing behind the tree? And then I realized there's a little rustling a little bit further up in the branches, and I looked further up about another 3 feet to about 9 feet up, and there was this absolutely horrible, hideous face looking at me. And for a split second, it registered like surprise, and then it grinned at me. And I just knew at that point that was not a friendly grin, because he showed me his teeth, and man, did he have some serious chompers on him. So I dove onto my sled, went down the hill as fast as I could. Didn't care at that point if I got killed or not. It was like irrelevant, whatever. If I die on the way down, it's better. As I was flying past my buddy Dave, who was about halfway trudging back up the hill, he apparently noticed that my eyes were bulging out, my face was whiter than the snow, and he got a concerned look on his face, and I just said, "Run like hell." And I heard him, as I went past, jump on his sled and follow down behind me. And I beat him back. We were about 3 miles out in the woods. I beat him back to the house by a good 15, 20 minutes. And and I probably forgot the whole thing. I was so scared. It was like hysterical amnesia. I forgot the whole thing happened. All I remembered is I was sitting at the end of the fire lane across from the trail that went to my house waiting for Dave to show up, and I couldn't remember where we had just been or what we were doing. And he finally showed up, and he never really said anything about it. Like maybe he just thought I was like not serious because I looked calmer when he got back and I'd pulled a prank on him or what. But it was a good 2 years later that he finally brought it up in a conversation. Hey, we never went back to that sledding hill. Oh, what sledding hill? The one way out in the middle of nowhere back there on the fire lane. I'm like, no. Remember we went across that slough and you went and made that run on that triple hill, and then you came down the hill and said, "Run like hell"? Boom. And then it all came back into my memory, and my first reaction was I got just incredibly angry, which kind of surprised me. You wouldn't think that'd be your first reaction. But I got incredibly angry that he had brought it back to my memory, and I remembered the whole incident. And I said, "Oh, you bastard, why did you bring that up?" And I turned around and stormed out on him. And it took like another 6 months or so before I wanted to be friends and talk to him again. But that was the first time I got to see one.
Wow.
Poor guy.
Okay,
he was like, what the?
Well, to make matters worse, after I saw the thing, I forgot all about it. And like I said, I had this terrible reaction to it when I finally did remember it, when he brought it back to my memory. And I always found it interesting that my parents hadn't noticed any real change in my behavior, which was like sudden and obvious. Because I went from practically living in the woods, it didn't matter if it was day or night, to I don't go into the woods at all. I do everything in the house, and I go to school, and then I do everything in the house. And for like 2 years I'd been doing this, and somehow they drew a blank on the whole thing.
Wow. I mean, maybe they just thought you were becoming a teenager, and
I don't know. Between 10 and 12, you would think that would be prime Jack Pine Savage territory for a boy to be out running around out in the woods wanting to shoot squirrels and stuff, So that, it always kind of surprised me that they never asked any questions about it or anything. And after this happened and I got my memory back, I went, well, I can't tell my parents about it. They'll just think I'm crazy. And thank God for Dave, he never saw the thing, and So and then I had to start dealing with the 40-plus years of PTSD and nightmares that went with having seen this thing. And, this wasn't like seeing a type 1, like a Patty type Bigfoot. This is one of the subarctic northern boreal forest varieties that very, very few people have ever seen one of these, because for the most part, if you see one, you don't survive to talk about it. And up until very, very recently, I had never met anyone who had survived to talk about it. And after we did this really good mock-up of the artwork of what my encounter looked like and put it up on a couple Bigfoot groups, somebody snagged it and put it up on the Bigfoot Outlaw Hideout group. And someone on there saw it and contacted me directly and went, I've never told anybody but the people inside my direct family. I've never been on a show before, but I saw the exact same damn thing that you have that picture done of.
Wow.
I got him on the phone. He told me about his encounter, and it was spectacularly bad. It was right along the same lines as mine, with the exception of it was summer. He had a muscle car, and this damn thing came right out of the wood line and basically made a beeline at at least medium speed toward the muscle car with him and his buddy and their girlfriends, and they had to beat out of there as fast as they could, and it chased them down the damn road. It left dents into the trunk where it tried to grab onto the car and stop it.
Oh my gosh.
So he
and
thought
see,
he was
that's
never going
not
to be
really
able to talk to anybody
common
about this encounter because it's so different than what most people have seen. He just figured that anybody else would just laugh it off and say, ha ha, you're crazy. There's no such thing. Well, you know what? I've been dealing with that for 40 years now. And that was part of what got me into Bigfoot, because I saw the Patty film and I went, well, that's got to be fake because it's not what I saw. Somebody made this up. Well, I did a bunch of research on it and went, no, it's not fake. Patty film is real, but I saw something completely different. Okay, there's more than one variety running around here. So that got me really confused and really interested in doing research into the old native folklore from across the continent and finding out what they had to say about it, because, who's the first people that you go to talk to about some local thing? Well, the locals. If the locals don't know about it, they don't have a name for it, there's no legends about it, it probably isn't real. But if they all have names for it, they all have legends about it, and they're all describing the same thing, it's probably real.
What are the differences between the boreal forest type and the patties that you noticed?
From what I've been able to figure out, there's actually 4 sub-varieties here in North America. And down in the southern part of the U.S., you have your wood boogers, which I'm not sure are the exact same thing as a skunk ape, although it might be, which tend to be, in general, a little bit thinner and a little bit smaller. And I'm not saying there aren't 10-foot wood boogers. There are. I'm just saying in general they're not usually as big. And they tend to be more boisterous. They do more vocalizations. They're a little bit more aggressive. They like to play pranks on humans. They're the ones that will come and move something out of your yard and hide it somewhere and then bring it back 2 weeks later. And they think that sort of thing is funny. We're like their version of a TV show. Now, the type 1's the patty type that you have out on the Pacific coast seem to be a little bit larger and a little bit less into messing around with humans. The tribes out there will tell you they sort of had a live and let live attitude with them, where it was like, you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. You can have the berry patches and the shorelines for food gathering at night, and we'll have them during the day, sort of thing. So they pretty much got along. And there was even a couple tribes that talked about how it was not a taboo for members of their tribe to marry members of the Sasquatch tribe. So, right there they're claiming that there was interbreeding going on, and it wasn't frowned upon in their tribes at least. So it may be that the ones out there on the West Coast have, if it is possible to produce an offspring, that they might have more human blood in them. And, part could be one of the reasons why they're less hostile. And then you get the ones that are mistaken for the dog man, your type 3 Bigfoot, that essentially looks like a Bigfoot, except it has a snout like a baboon. And
we have those down here in the South, too.
Yeah, yes, you do. And you also got the regular dogmen varieties down there, too, so you got lots of things to worry about. And then the type 4 is what the Indian tribes, the Iroquois, the Ojibwe, tribes all the way over into Nova Scotia, all had variations on this one name form with different spellings, slightly different pronunciations. But basically, it's the Wendigo. And nowadays, when people think of the Wendigo, they think of Algernon Blackwood's, epic book about the Wendigo, and they think about the legends of the Wendigo being supernatural and having all these connections to, ghosts and spooks and whatnot. And really very, very little of that is traditional. Most of that was added on by the superstitious fur trappers and lumberjacks that were over here the first people to get into the interior and meet with the natives and start running into weird stuff. And, they added on their own stuff on top of it. There was even in Maine, there was a very enterprising Irishman who wanted to make sure nobody was trapping the same valley he was in. So he went around and made fake Wendigo tracks to scare everybody. And no, he wasn't making tracks of some ghost or phantom. From the report, what he did is he took his snowshoes and changed the shape on them a little bit, took the runners off the end of them, wrapped them in fur, and then walked along and left these tracks that looked like giant footprints with fur on the edges of them, and put a little drop of blood in the bottom of each one. And the idea for this being that the legend at that point was that the Wendigo was always hungry because it was always losing blood. So every time it would take a step, it would leave a little drop of blood, and that's how you knew it was a Wendigo trail. Well, he was spectacularly successful. Everybody in the area fell for it for about 2 years until they figured out he had been a hoaxer and done this. So you got people going back all the way to like the late 1700s, early 1800s already doing hoaxing on this sort of thing and making up stories about the Wendigo. So it became this whole really complicated thing to try and unravel. And it took me a long time because of that to figure out what the real deal was with this. And, there is some element of supernatural tied in with it, just like almost every Indian tribe has some element of the supernatural tied in to their concept of what Bigfoot is. There's very few of them that are just like, it's a plain old flesh and blood animal, boom. But sometimes you got to be careful of the information you get from them because, like one of them, the Navajo, I was talking to him, and he said, well, this thing is like magical. And I said, well, what word do you use for it? And he told me the word, and I said, what's a direct translation for it? And it wasn't actually magical, it was rare. So basically, the word that's being mistranslated when they're talking about as it has magical powers, no, it's rare. The best direct translation we've got in English is cryptid. It's just the Navajo word for cryptid. It's something that's out of the ordinary. It's not usual.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's magical. It's just out of the ordinary.
Well, let me ask you, was it a Wendigo that you saw when you were 10 years old, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And yeah, they have nothing but a bad reputation.
Wendigos have the sharp teeth, don't they?
Yes,
have sharp
they do.
Teeth instead of.
Yeah, they are carnivores. You can tell just by looking at their teeth that those things are designed for eating meat. And the fingernails that it had looked to me, they were black, and they looked like talons. And, I don't understand the whole deal behind that. Now that I've had a chance to investigate more reports and actually talk to someone else that saw one. The one he saw had yellowish, but it looked to him like talons too. He just figured it was the fingernails. So, whether they grow that way or they do something themselves to make them that way, the effect is to make it look like they have claws on their fingers.
Wow. Well, I don't know. At 10 years old, seeing something that terrifying, no wonder you have PTSD or PTSD. I guess that's right. No. Anyway, you had that in nightmares. I don't know why I keep getting that.
Well, a little more addenda on the story here now before I end it. 1977, they had something lurking around the Sioux Reservation in South Dakota, and they actually put out a TV news spot on it, which somebody has picked up and put back out on YouTube. I've run it on my channel a couple times. But they're doing an interview with the natives down there on the reservation, and the Sioux are all saying, well, there's this thing around here, and blah, 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 blah. The newer version that's on YouTube actually has part of it cut out. But in the original, they asked this older lady, well, what do you think should be done about this creature? And she said, oh, it's walking around our houses, tapping on windows. It's dangerous. Somebody should shoot it. It might hurt somebody. And, of course, at that time, 77, they're like, ha, 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 there's no Bigfoot. If there is, it's only in the Pacific Northwest. Even the researchers told us that. Boom, boom, end of story. Well, I'm sitting there watching this. Came out in 77, so it's 5 years after I had my sighting. And some eyewitness on the reservation had drawn a really good colored pencil sketch of what this thing looked like. and it just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And I'm looking at it going, that's it. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I saw. Okay. And then, just the last couple of years, I started thinking about it. Well, the Sioux know that there's such a thing as Bigfoot. They've got words for it. They know that it exists. There's probably Bigfoot around the reservation. Why are they making such a big deal out of this particular one? Oh, because it wasn't a regular Bigfoot. It was a friggin' Wendigo, and they knew it was. And that's why they were out in the middle of the night with, high-powered rifles patrolling the res, because they knew what it was that was around there, and they were going to make sure until it left again. Well, somebody else picked up on that, saw that thing, and realized that it didn't match the descriptions of the other Bigfoot reports they'd come across, and started digging, and they found somebody else that saw something really similar, same kind of description, 2 years before that, also in northern Minnesota. And then you back up 3 years before that, and that's my encounter, and apparently out of everyone, I got the closest look at the face. So they contacted me and wanted to do a mock-up of it, and that's where the picture came from that you guys have now. It's his attempted mock-up. And it's not perfect. There's still some things left out. It doesn't have the canines on it. But that's pretty damn close. It's 95% of the way there.
Wow. Okay, what do you know about the Bigfoot that are snouted?
Very little. There's very little known about them. I've got 3 people that I know that have actually seen one, and I'm going to be, bringing them onto my show here and talking to them. But a lot of it, if you listen to these Dogman shows and you listen to the description, some of these people are talking about a Type 3 Bigfoot, not a Dogman. And it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference. A Type 3 Bigfoot, which I use the Micmac Confederation name for, the Gugwe. And the reason I use that name is because they're upper East Coast, like, if we were going to be respectful and use the name for this critter from the first native tribes that we ran into, we would have been using that name. So that's just why I use it. There's names in other tribes across the continent. Chippewa, Ojibwa call them Tugawee, and there's other names for them. I think it's the Navajo name translates as the Big Wolf or something like that. Don't quote me on that one. I'm not too sure. But in places where they live, the tribes have different names for them than what they have for Bigfoot. And a good example of that would be up in just south of Hudson Bay and, coming down into northern Minnesota, the tribes up there. Regular Bigfoot is a Makwanina. The Gugwe, of course, is what they call a Tugawee. The Wendigo, they call Wendigo. And they even have a name for a giant. It's Masabi. So why do they need all these different names if they're only talking about one thing? See?
Exactly.
That's what always gets me. And everybody goes, well, all the tribes have a name about Bigfoot, so Bigfoot must be real. Hey, half those tribes have names for more than one kind of Bigfoot. What does that tell you? And that's how you flat out. These ones are okay. If you see them, just go the opposite direction, you're fine. These ones, on the other hand, you better pray you see them before they see you, or they'll eat you. And that's the kind of reputation that the Type 3 Gugwe has. Very negative reputation. From what I've been able to gather, they tend to be pack hunters like Bigfoot is, but think more along the terms of a pack of giant baboons. Might be more along the terms you'd want to think about.
Do the Wendigos tend to be in the north more than in the south?
Yeah, if you get south of I use 2 different names to distinguish them because I think it's, even according to the old Indian tribes, it's the exactly same thing, except they had different names for them depending on the region. Now, the person I was telling you that contacted me that had seen one, he's down in Tennessee, and he said the only difference between the picture of the one that I'm putting around and what he saw was the one that he saw had shorter hair on it, and the hair was brown, which makes perfect sense. If you're further south, it's not as cold, you don't need that much hair, and brown is going to be a better color because you're going to have those predominant colors for the majority of the year. However, if you're up by the Arctic Circle, white and gray are going to work really good because there's snow on the ground most of the time. And that's another reason why these things are probably the Wendigo, or as they call it in the U.S., the Junosqua, which, yes, that's the Iroquois stone coats, the stone giants. The reason that they are adapted for a mostly carnivorous diet, I think, is because they're mostly adapted to being way far up north, where unless you've got a quadruple gut, like or a double gut at least, like the herbivorous cud chewers have, most of the plant material most of the year, you can't eat it. You can't digest it. it won't give you any food value. So they had to pretty much switch over to eating an almost exclusively meat diet. I'm sure that, during the summer they supplement that with berries or whatever else that they can gather up. But, if they're not hibernating like a bear would, they've got to be eating meat all the time during the winter. There's just not much of any other choice.
Excuse me just a minute. Hey, Miss Lauren, you are doing Dark Vader on that mic, and my Facebook locked up so I couldn't message you and say, back off the mic, girl. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I normally handle this behind the scenes, but everything's locked up on my computer, so anyway.
I was so excited.
You never have a show actually go smoothly without a technical problem. That never happens.
Exactly. Especially when it's live.
Maybe one day.
Wow, I am totally impressed with you. I really am, and I'm saying this in the best way. I am amazed at the wealth of information that you have. Truthfully.
Well, I appreciate it. I've done my homework. I'm not only out there in the field doing field research, but I'm also an archivist. So, and like I said earlier, if you want to know something about a rare or not yet classified animal, you go talk to the locals. You get on their good side and you go, hey, I'm not here to ridicule you. I've seen weird stuff too. What do you guys know about this? And they'll tell you. And it's just that hard, And yet we've got this kind of goofy Western idea that we know better than everybody else. Great white hunter goes over to Africa. Oh, there's this big thing that runs around the jungle and eats people. Blana looks kind of like a human covered with hair. And they're like, yeah, right. We know better. No such thing. Well, wait a minute. These guys have been living here all their lives dealing with these things. You don't think they know what's living in their backyard, but somehow you from the other side of the planet know better than them. Okay, that's really stupid.
I agree.
Amen.
I totally agree. So tell us about your second sighting. Or I would guess that would be, was in Minnesota also, or?
77, spring of 77 would be my second sighting. That was, again, in Minnesota. And this time it was completely in the dark, so I will probably never know exactly what it was that I was looking at, other than that it was a Bigfoot of some kind. But all I could see was just the general outline of it, and its two big old eyes reflecting the light off the porch back at me. And this one was as scary as the first one was. This one was even scarier. And for me, it's even still kind of scarier yet because I don't know which variety it was. It could have been a Wendigo again. I don't know. At this point, I think the Wendigo are mostly visitors there in the winter. My sighting, the Sioux Reservation incident, and the guy in 75 that saw one all happened during the winter, during the coldest part of the winter. So my guess on those boys is that they don't like heat at all, except for the southern ones that are adapted to it. And they come down during the winter not because the cold is pushing them down, but because the cold is allowing them to come down. They follow the cold air. I'm going to think about that one for a minute. They also have the reputation of going out and doing their hunting during blizzards. So it may be that the second one was a regular type 1 or something, I hope so, but still acting very strange. My folks were having a party, and to set this up a little bit, our house is out in the middle of nowhere. Our nearest neighbor was half a mile away. We had a 3-by-7 mile block of woods right behind our house that if you walked out to the end of it, you would be on the deserted side of a lake. So just a whole lot of nothing there. And back there close to where that deserted side of the lake was is where I saw that first one in 72. So we didn't usually make very much noise there. Rarely had a gathering there. It was pretty quiet except for us using a gravel pit behind our house as a shooting range, which you would think would be enough to keep most curious animals away, the fact that there's shooting going on there all the time. But apparently it didn't work for this one. Yeah, normal animals would stay the hell away from there because they know, I hear shooting coming from there all the time. I'm not going over there. But it was early in the evening still. It wasn't past midnight. I'm guessing it was probably between 10:30 and midnight at some point. And one of the adults said, hey, can you go outside and grab some beer out of my car? And, well, just need to be unlocked. Nope, the door's unlocked. It's, the third car back on the right-hand side. Just go there. Okay. So I go walking out the front. We got two porch lights. One of them is actually aimed at the driveway, but that bulb is burned out. The one that's aimed at the front yard is still on, but that only illuminates up to the edge of the cars that are parked along the side of the driveway. You can't actually see into the driveway or anything beyond it. It's not in the light, and the edges of the cars are only dimly lit. So I go walking down the steps, 1, 2, 3 steps, walk across the sidewalk, down another couple steps onto the gravel, and the house is sort of set up on an embankment, so as you walk down the driveway, you're going downhill. So initially, as I come around the corner of the first car, I see there's somebody standing down there, and they've got the old, 1970s styled, really big frame sunglasses on. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this adult's really drunk. They're walking up the driveway in the dark with sunglasses on, fall and break their neck. And I was just about to give them a hard time. And something about it looked wrong, and I, taken a couple more steps forward, and I was just about to say something funny, and I realized that, the distance between the lenses was way too big. And that sort of made me, slow down a little bit, and I took one more step, and I got a little bit further down. Now my head was below the level of where the light was shining, so I could see into the dark driveway a little bit better, and there was cars piled up on both sides of the driveway all the way out to the end of it, which had to be close to the length of a football field. We had a really long driveway. And and then I could see there was sort of a shape around these big sunglasses, and the head was way too big. And all of a sudden it flashed in my mind, oh shit, it's that huge bear again, I'm going to get eaten. Well, to back up a little bit, we had this bear in the area that was very dangerous. He was an older bear. He had been on our yard digging in our garbage a few times. After this incident, he ended up getting hit by a state patrol car, and he was the second biggest bear that had been taken in the history of the state of Minnesota at that time.
And this is a black bear, right?
Yep, black bear, but he still weighed 720 pounds. He was so old that he had gray rings around both of his eyes and a gray diamond patch in between his eyes going down to the end of his snout, his muzzle. And so he was really obvious, even in the dark with the light reflecting off of him, you could see that. So I figured that, and we called him Big Bastard. I figured Big Bastard had come back, he was going to kill me. Oh God, I'm done. What do? I can't outrun a bear. If I turn around and try and run back, no way. On a short start especially, they're really fast. So I'm like, oh my God, no, if I stop moving, he'll realize I've seen him and he'll come after me. I didn't say anything yet, so whatever this bear sitting there doesn't realize that I've seen him yet, because I haven't made any kind of gesture toward him or anything that indicates that I've seen him yet. Thank God I didn't make that smarty pants comment to the adult that I thought was standing there.
Exactly.
Well, then two things about that sort of threw me. All of a sudden I realized that, well, although the head is huge and the eyes are really big, they're bigger than they should be, and whatever it is appears to be squatting on its haunches, and it's still 6 feet tall. Even a 720-pound black bear is not going to be 6 feet tall squatting on its haunches. Sorry to tell you, folks. And then I took a little bit closer look at the outline, and I realized it wasn't a bear at all. Now, all this is happening in a split second, and I'm just my mind's racing trying to figure out what to do, how to get out of this situation. I am so screwed. Okay, I just thought this thing was a huge bear waiting for me to walk into it so it could kill me. Now I'm not sure what the hell it is, but it's shaped like a Bigfoot squatting on its haunches, and it's gigantic. If I stop moving again, what's it going to do? Is it just going to grab me, break my neck, and then go walking off? Because there sure isn't anybody else out here to stop it or see what just happened. And there's a big event going on with all kinds of noise coming from inside with tons of cars lined up. Why is it here? If it's just curious, why is it sitting in the middle of the driveway in the dark waiting for me to walk into it? Okay, now by this point, I'm at the second car, and I'm walking even slower, and I sort of turn a little bit, and I grab onto the handle, and I make like I'm trying to open it to buy time so that I can think a little bit more. And I figure, well, the only way I'm going to get out of this is I'm just going to have to like play act like I didn't even see this thing, and try to work my way in between these cars back out onto the front yard where the light is actually illuminating something, and hope that one of the adults inside through the windows will see that I'm out there getting mugged by a furious grizzly, or wiped out by whatever it is there. Yeah, Bigfoot's tearing me apart in the front yard. Pay attention, adults. So that was very hair raising, and so I pretended I was going to open the door. I didn't actually try to open the door. Then I went to the back door, and I'm like, okay, if I turn around and slowly walk back toward the house, my back is completely to it, I'm screwed. It'll nab me. On the other hand, if I keep walking toward it, I'm getting closer. It's sitting right along the front passenger side door on the third car is what it's across from. So I'm already within like one car length of it. So trying to keep thinking still, I go to the back door on the car, pretend that I'm trying to open that. And then I go, okay, I'm looking, and I can see, out of my left eye that there's like barely enough space in between the front bumper and the back bumper of the two cars for me to squeeze my shins through. But I should be able to get through there. So, like, oh, geez, I act like I'm all frustrated. I can't remember what I said. Like, oh, no, it's locked. And very, not so slowly as to be suspicious, but not in any big hurry. Took two more steps to the back end of the car and started to turn to squeeze my way through. And I was pretending like I was going to open the trunk. And I'm looking at this thing out of the corner of my eye, and all of a sudden it's like I realize I have to turn my head away from it in order to keep up this play acting. So for a split second, I turned my head away from it, and I shift my body, and then I'm looking back with my right eye, and I can still see that green reflection, and it hasn't moved. It hasn't even moved its head. It's watching me out of the corner of its eyes. So I pretend that I'm trying to open up the trunk. Oh, gee, I don't have the key. Damn, I'll have to go back inside. And I squeeze my way the rest of the way through. Now I'm on the other side of the cars from it. If it's going to try and tackle me or grab me, it's going to make some noise. And so I go down like I'm trying to get into one of the back doors, and staying in hunched over position, run like hell up along the side of the car so he can't see me. And finally I pop up. I'm at the front of the first car, make like 3 big steps. I'm on the top of the front steps, run in the door. There's a whole group of people, all my folks' friends and everything, and they see me come in like white as a sheet and run directly for the gun cabinet and pull out a 12-gauge. And my dad goes, "What is it? What's going on out there?" And I said, "It's big." And then I realized if I finished the word and said Bigfoot, everybody there would laugh at me. They'd send me to my room. They wouldn't do anything. So instead of that, I finished with what I thought it was originally, which was that bear, whose nickname was Big Bastard. I said, "It's Big Bastard." So, of course, he was there grabbing the hunting rifle right behind me. We both ran out the front door. One of my brothers was there and grabbed one of the lights and was shining down the driveway and all over the place, and of course by then whatever it was had figured out, I've been had. He's seen me, I'm out of here. So that one for me was the scariest. Here's this thing sitting quietly in the dark waiting for you to walk into it. And having to turn my back on it at about 8 feet was easily the scariest thing I've ever had to deal with.
How old were you when this happened?
16.
Good night. Okay, this was in Minnesota.
Yep,
also,
both those were in Minnesota.
What is I know there's reports in Minnesota. What is the disposition? Usually, are they aggressive there or reclusive? I
don't hear any more aggressive reports from there than from any other parts of the country. It seems like if you want to go tangle with some ones with a really bad attitude, either go to East Texas or come up here to western Montana. That's where the other really crabby ones are in the lower 48. But Minnesota doesn't have that kind of a reputation. They do have a lot of Bigfoot sightings. They do have a lot of reports, and they still, as far as I know, they've got the longest documented trackway ever found from northern Minnesota. It was over 3 miles long. It was like several thousand steps. I don't remember exactly, but they got a 20-minute video of it. These snowmobilers found it and followed it. And all it did was go in a big loop right up by the Canadian border around this whole deserted area that was all swamp and forest, like something had come out to walk the edge of his territory and make sure that nobody, intruders or whatever, and then just went back in again. But this wasn't even on a trail. They were bushwhacking. They were making a snowmobile trail, and they had chainsaws with them. And they said they had cut through like over a dozen deadfalls just to get where they were at when they ran across this trail in 3 feet of snow. Yeah, not a human out there making fake tracks. Sorry.
You
no
know
way.
where
and
I
they
live?
Followed it and filmed it a long ways. Now, where are you at?
East Texas.
Okay. Yeah, land of the crabby boogers.
I've never. Well, yeah, we've had a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I guess maybe they like me. I don't know. I've really not had. Well, I guess I've had some stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was the way they all were, but I don't think they're all like that. But,
Well, I think they're
Miss
individuals.
Lauren,
they're as much an individual as a human being as some of them. Some of them are angry, and some of them are happy, and some of them are neutral. And you know, could be just having a bad day, and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you get this horrible reaction. You know, and some of the troops may just have like rules about that sort of thing. Either stay away from humans, or maybe they have rules about, you know, if humans come in our territory, dispose of them. You don't know. They could have different rules. We don't know.
Well, you live in Montana now.
Yep, yeah, I've been out here for 6 years now, since 2010, or 2010.
And now instead of black bear, you have grizzly out there.
Yeah, I took the upgrade. I was tired of those little piddly things you can just boot out of the way when you have to go out the front door. Wanted to have something that was an actual threat, you know. Yeah, we got things besides Bigfoot to worry about here. We got 200-plus pound timber wolves. We've got, you know, mountain lions up to 300 pounds, and then we got grizzlies like 800 pounds. So you got a variety of potential carnivores that can eat you here.
You know, we had Todd. I know you know Todd. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling us about a wolf attack that killed their dogs, a pack of wolves in Montana. It's a very unforgiving place where you live.
As a matter of fact, I heard that show, and I don't know if he even mentioned it to you, but I know Todd. We're friends.
Uh-huh.
And,
yes, he's the one that recommended that we bring you on, actually.
Oh, thanks to Todd then. Yeah, actually, the first time I got him to come out here, we went and camped up on Blue Mountain and found a big old pile of Sasquatch scat sitting on a little river in the middle of, on this little island in the middle of this river, basically. 10 feet across or something, and maybe like 6 to 8 foot wide river on each side. Just a little stream, basically. Only runs during the spring when there's runoff. And yeah, he just whatever, you know, he figured that was a good place to take one and leave it. And we were only camped like maybe 50, 60 feet away, so it was inevitable. And we went down to the river. We were gonna, hey, well, there's a little island there. This is a good place to get across. Hey, there's a huge pile of maybe we camped in the wrong place, dude. That's not grizzly poop. We should move.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we know the order of potentially dangerous predators out here, and Bigfoot's at the top of the list. Grizzly's second.
Really? So actually, you think that okay? Now this is kind of, you've probably had this question 100 times, but if you think a grizzly, a full-grown monster grizzly, and a Bigfoot got into it, who would win?
Oh, well, for my money, that would depend on the size of the Bigfoot that was fighting the grizzly and the size of the grizzly that was fighting the Bigfoot. Bigfoot's got a lot more, you know, intelligence and probably mobility on its side than the grizzly does, but the grizzly bear has some nice claws and ridiculously strong, so it'd be a hell of a fight. Now, I can tell you from reports that I've heard, some of them going back a long ways with native trappers and stuff even talking about this, that they have seen them either consuming or walking off with a dead bear. So it doesn't seem to be much question that they will eat a bear if they get the opportunity. And, you know, I used to hunt bears and eat them, so why wouldn't a Bigfoot do it? I don't know.
Right.
But, yeah, apparently that's, that's one of the things that I try to tell people, because they keep asking me, well, you're going out here in Montana, #1 animal attack state in the U.S., which it is, and and you're not carrying a gun with you. What's the deal? And it's like, well, I know Bigfoot's around here. What's that got to do with anything? The other predators know Bigfoot's around here. Are they going to come into Bigfoot's territory? No. They're not stupid predators. They want to keep breathing. They're going to stay outside of where Bigfoot is. So as long as you are very close to where Bigfoot is, you don't have to worry about those predators. They're not going to show up.
I totally agree with you. I've had areas where I know Sasquatch are in there. They're flanking me. I know they're in there, and I don't worry about hogs, which we have wild feral hogs here, Pinewood rooters with tusks like 3 inches long. We have panthers, and we do have some wolves, and it is dangerous to go out there without a weapon. But if you're in a territory where you know there are Sasquatch, you're not going to run into these other animals. Well, I never have seen them out there.
No. All you have to worry about at that point is the Sasquatch themselves, as long as they aren't a super aggressive troop or anything. That,
exactly.
And you've habituated them a little bit, and I don't mean give them food, but just get them used to your presence being there.
Yes. And I think also being a woman, I'm less non-threatening.
Yeah.
That,
totally agree.
So.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I noticed from the reaction of that third one that I saw, because I was trying to get a picture of him, and he was maybe 60 feet away, sitting in a clump of a little thicket, and I had a
and
good
this was
view
in Montana.
Yeah, he was pretending to be a stump, and I stopped walking and I reached down to pull my camera out and take a picture of him, and then I realized that his face had changed because I bought it. I thought he was a stump, but then when I pulled the camera out and looked back at him, he gave me this angry glare, and I went, "Oh shit, that's not a stump." And I just kept walking like nothing had happened. And I talked to a couple of my native friends after that, and they're both completely under the same impression that I am, that they not only know what a gun is, they think any other metal thing you have in your hand could be a gun or a weapon. So if you're pointing a camera at them, they might think you're pointing a gun at them, which wouldn't be a good thing.
No, it wouldn't. And I was down at the lake. I lived real close to a lake, and I was down there, and I was looking across the little slough, and I saw this big stump. Down here we have pine trees that the pine beetles get in them, and they rot, and they break off, and they leave a real tall stump. And that's what I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my camera, and I was trying to zoom in. I might have had binoculars. I don't remember now. This was years back. And I couldn't find it in the binoculars, and I looked, and it was gone. And I said, doggone, I was looking at one right then, and I could never zoom in to be sure. Because it did look kind of funny, but I thought it was a stump.
Yep.
There you are.
Yeah, I often wonder how many times I'd walk past one of those suckers pretending that he's an old torn-up tree stump or something, and just, our vision is so based on movement. If something doesn't move, it just doesn't attract us at all.
Exactly. You're right. I mean, even deer are hard to see.
Yeah.
Deer are hard to see. If they're in the trees and stuff, you would think, okay, here they are. They're a fawn color. How can you not see them? But they can blend in perfectly until they move.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
and you think
crazy.
about the fact that, deer are not considered to be the brightest of animals, and yet it's fairly easy for them to hide from us. Imagine what a really smart one could do, And this is what kills me. This is one of the things that always gets me about the people going, well, Bigfoot's real. How come we're not seeing them all the time? And how come this, that, and the other thing? And it's like, do you realize how unobservant people are? For a long time, we thought there was no American bison left in North America. They were all extinct, right? Wrong. They're flying out of one of these, mid-sized cities up in Canada, and this is during the 1950s. They're flying a passenger plane out of there. The weather's bad. They have to take a little bit different route than what they usually take, and they're staying a little bit lower to stay out of the cloud bank. And one of the passengers looks out the window and sees a herd of buffalo. And this is like 50 miles from a huge city, okay? There's a herd of buffalo. How well do buffalo hide? Not very well. And this is 50 miles from a major city, and they find, there's a whole herd of buffalo there. Well, fiddly-dee, we thought they were extinct. And you don't think Bigfoot could hide? Seriously, come on.
Exactly. Definitely. And a lot of them are dark in color. Well, when you look at a forest, there's a lot of shadows in there.
Yep.
And they could just be another shadow in there.
Yeah, if you're that color, you just lay down underneath a pine tree or something, and you look like part of the shadow on the ground. Nobody will see you.
Exactly. I did an experiment one time. We had one of these old cheap gorilla suits that we used to have a good time with it, but we had this old cheap gorilla suit, and we had somebody put it on and go stand in the woods, and we were trying out night vision. And, with night vision, as long as they weren't moving, you couldn't even find them.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they opened their eyes, and then their eyes would light up on the night vision. And I'm like, this is Gen 4, and we can't find this guy in a cheap gorilla suit. And I'm like, so it just tells me right now, that they can even hide from technology. So
yeah, and even if you're ready for it, I had somebody telling me that about the Olympic project when they had their last little get-together out there, and they had like a 2-mile loop course that they had set up, and they had somebody with a Bigfoot outfit on with like a orange vest on top of it too yet. And they're going to show up somewhere along this line, this 2 miles here, maybe 2 or 3 times. And the objective is for you to be observant enough to see them when you see them and whip out your camera and get a decent picture of them. So they did this whole thing like 3 or 4. Yeah. These people are all expert Bigfoot researchers, right? It's not like Joe Ordinary. These are supposed to be the really good ones. And it took them from what I understand, 3 or 4 trips to get everybody around the course, give them all a chance to do this. And out of that, they got one person. They got a halfway crappy, blurry photo, and that was it.
I am not even surprised.
Okay, so imagine a Bigfoot without an orange vest on, trying to hide. Seriously, come on.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't even try and find them, to take pictures of them or anything like that. I go into what I'm basically looking at is secondary evidence of them. I find lots of tracks. I find lots of tree and stick structures, that sort of thing. And trying to put
what have you learned about them?
On
what do you think you know about them from looking at the incidental evidence that you've come across?
Well, one thing that seems to be in common with them all the way across the board is that all of them make tree and stick structures, and they seem to be very uniform, not only across the continent, but we've got a couple of researchers over in the Scandinavian countries that have found signs of them over there, too. And it's exactly the same things that we're finding over here, same kinds of structures. So that seems to be very homogeneous across whatever they are and whatever possible sub-variety we may actually be dealing with. They've all got this sort of marking system, and they all seem to know what it is. And part of it, we've pretty much figured out what it is, what it means, and other things, like where they make a little collection of twigs laying in the ground in a certain shape or something. God knows what that is. It's going to take us a while to figure some of that stuff out.
Exactly.
But there's some oddball things that they seem to do in areas that they're around a lot that, if you know what to look for, it becomes really actually pretty easy to find signs of them and figure out where you're going to find tracks and whatnot, because the two are tied together. If you find stick structures, that means that they were there at some point, and when they were there, presumably they maybe left a track. And, if you find tracks are probably going to lead you to where there's stick structures, so two complement each other. And, I don't watch Finding Bigfoot anymore, but how many times do they find tracks and stick structures?
I've never known them to even observe stick structures. I don't think they count those.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched it in years, but even when I did watch it, it seemed like they were more interested in vocalizations and eye shine, track, that kind of thing, witness reports and that. But speaking of vocalizations, have you ever heard any?
I
you thought may have been them? Or?
For as much as I've been around them and as much as I've seen them 3 times and everything, I have never heard an actual vocalization that I can absolutely, for positive, say came out of a Bigfoot. I've heard some really odd things that are very likely to have come out of a Bigfoot, but I can't absolutely positively say for sure. And I found out through my native sources when I was doing my research on the Wendigo that they don't usually vocalize. They mimic other animals or they use whistling to communicate when they're hunting.
Well, it seemed like to me years ago when I first started this, about 15 years ago, well, actually, it's been more like 17 years ago, but when I first started it, I noticed that they mimicked a lot more than they do now. And in 43 years, have you ever noticed change in behavior, especially with more people out there doing calls, more people onto their means of communication and everything? Have you noticed a change? I
haven't been stationary enough to actually notice a long-term change like that. I've been in 6 different states, and I tend to move every, decade or something. So I get lots of experience in different parts of the country. I've been down Florida, Texas, Wyoming, Montana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Do I notice changes in their behavior? Absolutely. It's not exactly the same from place to place. There's some places and parts of the country where it looks like they actually move a lot. Out here, I've been able to find one area that a troop is in, and I'm pretty sure they're year-round residents, pretty much on this one particular mountain. Because there's food year-round. Why go anywhere? Why move if you've got a ready food supply? That's just dumb. Animals don't do dumb stuff like that. It's not optional. You got to go where the food is, man.
And they don't migrate because of weather either.
No. Here, their migrations are up and down the mountain. During the summer, they go higher up the mountains and into the passes where it's cooler. And during the winter, they come down closer to the base of the mountain where there's more food available and the grazing animals are hanging around. So what was the question?
Well, the question was, in your 43 years, have you noticed changes in their behavior because of the knowledge that humans have now? And that it was just like when I first got into this, I was hearing a lot of knocking. Now I don't. Also, I heard a lot of animal mimics. Now I don't.
That's
and they do different things.
Animal mimicry that, the Bigfoot Outlaws will call like the bionic bird or something like that, or where they do a really good animal call and then it trails off into something lousy at the end. It's like they lost interest or something. And, I can't 100% say for sure that's Bigfoot. Chances are it's really good that it was Bigfoot. But, that sort of stuff I've heard a lot of. But, like I said, in the areas that I've been in, mostly these more northerly varieties, they don't seem to vocalize a lot. They just mostly do animal mimicry and whistles. And, there's a really good reason to don't whistle when you're wandering around in the woods, because that's how they communicate when they're hunting. And they might think, there's some other Squatch is hunting in my territory. I'm going to have to go rip his head off. And they are territorial, if they got a nice spot set up where they're not migrating around or something, they're more territorial. If you wander into that area, they're going to be a lot more on edge with you than if it's just some place that they hang around for a week during when the berries are good.
Well, I have to say that here I have seen over the last 17 years such changes. I know they're still around, but I've seen changes in the way they communicate. It was like as soon as I was on to them and started trying to mimic their calls, they would change things up. And I felt like I totally messed them up. I really had a lot of guilt over that because I was only trying to be one of them, I guess, and it just they didn't want me in their club, not at all. So, but in Montana, you have to worry about all these other things out there.
Yeah.
And you don't go with the weapons, and you hope there is a Sasquatch in the area to keep everything away. When do you research? You can't really. I guess you can do some research during the winter, but is mostly your research or when you get out there and actually investigate and look around, is it mostly during the spring and summer and fall, or?
I have never yet done a follow-up on a sighting other than one that happened at one of our camps when I wasn't there, and that's it. I don't do any of that. Some of that I gather information on. Well, somebody saw one over here. Take a look at a topo map. What was it doing there? Oh, it's going from point A to point B. That's not helpful. Or another one sees one over here. Where's this area? Oh, this looks like someplace they might live. Now I'll go take a look at it. Because I want a little bit of mobility. You know, I got a messed up back. I have to walk with a cane. So days of walking endless miles over mountains looking for sign are way over for me. I'd figure out where they are first before I even go there. And then generally, if I have the a place where there's sign and whatnot, I'll camp there for a week or two or three. 2015, I spent 176 days in the field, and that means nights sleeping in the field. Summer and winter. 106-degree day, out in the field. Minus 11 day, out in the field. So I do a tremendous amount of field research, probably way more than most researchers you can think of. And yeah, there's like areas that I know that there's grizzlies and stuff. I don't go there to do research. No. I find areas that are a little bit safer. And one of the most bizarre ones that I found is about 3.5 miles from where I'm sitting right now, right outside of town in Patty Canyon. If any of the listeners want to go check out the Patty Canyon series of videos that I put out, I had Richard Soule, the tree and stick structure guy from the BFRO, came out here and took him up there and showed him some of the spots, and he was absolutely 100% convinced that there's Bigfoot living right here on Mount Sentinel, right next to Missoula. And one of the prime reasons for it is because year-round food, and one of the prime reasons for that is because we have a serious deer overpopulation problem. They're living all over in town. And when it gets later in the summer and everything else is drying up because no precipitation, well, guess what? Yummy green yards that all the rich people are pouring water on, great grazing. So all the deer come down this one little narrow canyon, and the only way they can come down the one side of it is to actually go through this huge thicket, which has just a labyrinth of trails in there that someone made for some reason. And so I was camped about 300-400 yards further up the canyon from where that was for about 3 weeks, and almost every night I would hear signs that they were around the area, like one or two wood knocks or an owl, that didn't sound, or a crow call at night. And crows don't call at night. They're afraid of owls. Owls eat them. So you're hearing a crow calling at night. It's not a crow, but this is what they were doing. Like probably on the average of 4 days a week during the summer or the early spring and late spring, early summer, they were going down there and catching deer. And I think it was just because they were waiting for more plants to be blooming and whatnot, so that they had other things to eat. But they were sort of just eating deer at that point. And I actually got a hold of the local NBC affiliate here and had them come out and do a news report on it too. And they were all sorts of interested in it and didn't really ridicule me, which is pretty unusual for mainstream news.
Oh, yes, it is.
I think the reason is because the guy that did the interview with me had to do interviews with a couple other people that had actually seen mountain lions in town, attacking the deer in town. One of them jumped over a fence onto the university property, attacked a deer, drug it back over the fence and partway up the mountain. That was right on the university. So they're like, they know we've got a deer problem. They know we've got a mountain lion problem because of that. So for him, it wasn't kind of much of a stretch to go, oh, great, now we got a Bigfoot problem, too. He was very polite and respectful, and I don't think it's like anything new. I think they've been living up there a long time, and it's real interesting because it's, again, like as if we had made an arrangement with them when, in fact, we hadn't. That area's been no hunting for like 80 years. You can't even bring a pellet gun up there and shoot at targets or anything like that. You can't camp overnight, not legal, and you're supposed to be out of there at like 9 in the evening at the latest. So humans are up there running around, walking their dogs, driving bicycles and stuff during the day, and then at night Bigfoot take over.
We have places like down here in East Texas. They close at dusk and open at dawn, and there's no hunting.
Suspicious? Yeah.
Yes, we have probably about 20 minutes left, maybe 15. I don't know. I'm not looking at the studio. But I want to hear about some of your conspiracy theories because I'm a huge into that, and I just want to see if you come up with anything I've already thought about.
Oh, geez, it depends on which conspiracies you're talking about. You know, the scary part of it is most of them are sort of all tied together at some point. That's the scary thing.
Okay. Do you think the government is aware that Bigfoot exists?
Not a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Absolutely, positively, they do.
I think so, too. Do you think our parks and wildlife know they exist?
I'm sorry, do I think what?
Do you believe that our Parks and Wildlife Service know they exist?
Yes and no. That's not general knowledge. It's not something that they're immediately indoctrinated into when they become a member of the Park Service. But I've actually had, when I was doing the keynote lecture out here at the first Big Sky Bigfoot Conference back October 2015, we had one of the people that drove all the way out here from it was from Washington State and asked me some real specific questions. And I got curious and asked him a real specific question. Well, you're from way out in Washington State. What'd you come over here for? And he's like, well, I'm really interested in Bigfoot. And, the truth came out that he was actually a forestry worker. And he wanted to know more about it in case he ran into something odd, that he would have some kind of a clue of what was actually going on. And, I applaud him for that, even though it's not officially recognized as a real critter. These guys care enough about the people that they're, supposedly doing the job for, that they want to know something about what's going on in case they run into something weird. So to me, that was a good thing, Okay, you can't officially admit it, but you unofficially admit it's real and you want to know more about it. Okay, cool.
Well, I found an area down here, and I've got to tell you about this. And you may have heard this story from Baron Kumbo since you've been on their show. But I found this area, and it was a really hot area. It was really a great spot, and Baron Kumbo came down here along with a lot of other people from different states. We had just like this huge outing. And we had some pretty spectacular events occur while we were out doing night research, but during the day, we found a whole lot of sign and tree structures and such like that. And at the area where Bear and Kumbo were in the lead truck, and they saw two Sasquatch cross the road. Well, all we saw was the shadow. They split up, and one went one way and one went the other way. Well, all we could see was the shadow, the shape of one running off with the spotlights on it. We couldn't really see much. But at that area was apparently a regular crossing. Well, later, less than a week later, I think it was actually a week later, we went back out there, and they had designated all of that area where all the sign was, that we were finding all the tree, and it was Structure City. And I'd never seen so many structures, and they were going to log that. And where it crossed, they had filled in all these tracks, and you could tell they were footprint tracks. They had filled them all in with sand from somewhere else that didn't even match the dirt from our area, and it was crazy. And
probably could have just swept the surface and took pictures of them again.
Exactly. I didn't understand what they were doing. But they did. They went in, they logged that whole area, and so for the longest time, it was like all over all the radio shows and everything about this area. Before long, that place was just covered up with researchers. I would go out there and find bait bags hanging and just all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, wow. And then it just got deader than everything out there. There was nothing out there. And so I just quit going. I said, they've moved somewhere else where there's not so many people going and bothering them and stuff. And so I stayed away for a long time, but I went back. And we had actually gone out there because there's one place that's like a spooky, ghosty place, right? So we went there for the ghosty thing. We took a ghosty person with us for that, and it ended up either you're going to get ghosties or you're going to get Bigfoot. And that night we got Bigfoot, and I said, they're back.
Nice.
So, yeah. Well, so we're camping out. And we get secret police coming to our camp and asking us, looking at everything we've brought. And, of course, I've got bionic ear and all this kind of stuff. And they're saying, what are you using that for? And asking all kinds of questions. And I want to say secret police, but it was federal police. That's what they had on their Kevlar vest, was federal police. So when I looked it up, it was Secret Service. And we did have a lot of activity that night, a lot of activity. And I said, they're running amok, running amok tonight. And that next day we had them there, and the people that camped next to us were absolutely terrified because they were really giving them the third degree. Mm-hmm. And they said, we'll never be back here. Because I don't know what they're looking for, but we don't have anything they're looking for. And we questioned them, asked them, what are you doing here? Or just helping out the Forest Service. Why? Well, we can't discuss that. I'll tell you, I know why they were there, and you do too. I know you by the way you're laughing.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what they were up to. Well, it's kind of interesting here because as far, there's 4 or 5 researchers up here on the western side of the state that are fairly well known. They've got their own Facebook groups and whatnot. Mm-hmm. None of them really get pestered, but none of them really come up with too much that the government would find objectionable that they need to be pestered about. And whenever I go out and do something, it's like no advance notice. I get a couple of my friends, we go out and do it, come back. So it's like they don't know where we're going when. Makes things difficult for them. And so that helps to a certain extent. But, yeah, if you start getting too much activity and finding out too much stuff that they're going to have too much trouble denying, they'll try and do something about it to make sure it doesn't keep happening.
Well, I was doing a lot of recordings, and I was shipping them out over email. And it seemed like every time I did that, my house, above my house, would turn into an airport. I'd have this whole neck of the woods, there'd be helicopters, twin-engine planes, and I'm like, really? And what would be funny would be some of the recordings were old ones from when I lived in another county, but here they come, Even my son would say, yeah, you must be sending off recordings again.
Yeah,
so they're out here looking for them,
Thing I notice up here, and I don't know how much of this you get down in Texas or you even could actually access the information to find out, but people that go missing and are never found again. People that go out in the woods and are killed and later found, and really lame answers are given as to what happened that don't happen. Me and Kelly Shaw are tracking 5 right now, just from this part of Montana that have disappeared in the last couple of years that have not been found. It was 7. They found 2 of them in situations that really sound suspicious. And, before anybody jumps on this and goes, well, it was an accident. Yes, accidents can happen. If you have an accident in the woods, guess what? They'll probably find your body. Oh, it's an animal attack. Yes, animal attacks happen. And if you get attacked by an animal in the woods, they will probably find your body. Let me give an example of one of the people I'm talking about here. George Alex Bowman, 53, 6'2", 200 and some pounds, disappears. He's out chopping wood, tells everybody he's going out chopping wood, fill up the trailer, the back of his truck, brings some wood back to the house. So never comes back. They go and find his truck right where he said it would be, Ambrose Creek Saddle. Truck's still there, doors open. No George. So they bring in a dog team. Well, we got to find George. Was he kidnapped? Da-da-da-da-da. Doesn't look like it. Nothing was stolen. Why would anybody kidnap him? He's not rich or anything. No evidence of foul play, no evidence of other vehicle tracks. So we'll bring in the dog team. He must have wandered off or got attacked by an animal or something. So they have at one point 3 dog teams there. None of them can find a scent trail. Okay, would this guy flap his arms and fly out of there? They got the seat of his truck they can smell. They can smell his scent on the seat of the truck to get his smell to find a trail, to follow it, and know it hadn't been raining. as if that makes that much of a difference with some of those bloodhounds anyway. But no, it hadn't been. And, so for a couple, 2-3 days, they're working with all the dogs there. They got a helicopter up for an entire day. They're flying around looking for them within 2 miles. No sign, none whatsoever. So like 2 weeks later, the cops, some of the local sheriff department, I think it was, found his remains. And there was a quick report that came out on the BBC, of all places, warning their countrymen from England that if they're in the western U.S. to be careful, that there's some kind of an animal attack here in western Montana. This was never up on the local news. That thing on the BBC aired one time. They went to a commercial. They were supposed to come back and talk more about it. When the commercial was over, they did not come back to the story. The local newspaper had kind of a hogwash version of the events, what happened to them, not mentioning all the suspicious stuff that I'm talking about. There was no obituary. There was no coroner's report ever. Okay? Now, according to the BBC report, they had found his remains, quote, torn limb from limb, spread over about a 40-foot area.
Lord have mercy.
So
what would do that?
If a mountain lion, yeah, exactly. Now, if a mountain lion got him, a mountain lion could drag a guy that big off, sure. And it would have left a really obvious trail. If a grizzly got him, yes, a grizzly could drag off a guy that big easily. But either one of those animals, if they kill you, they're going to have to kill you. That means there's going to be blood. Blood is easy to follow, okay? So there's no trail. So something, without causing him to bleed, killed him, picked him up, carried him 2 miles to a steeply wooded hillside, and then tore him apart. Tell me what animal does that.
None that I can think of, and I can't think of anything that would do that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the point I'm trying to get to with this whole thing is that, especially in areas like this where there are known large predators, and there are teams that are trained to recover people that are lost or hurt or get killed out in the woods, if it was an animal attack, they're going to find your remains. They're going to find them in short order. It's not that hard. If you disappear all of a sudden and there's no trail, and then they find your remains weeks or maybe never, something really suspicious and weird happened. Because if you moved across the ground, those dogs are going to find your scent.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and we have a long reputation of bad Bigfoot encounters up in this area, going all the way back to The Wilderness Hunter, the book by Teddy Roosevelt, the Bauman incident there. And that's right on the other side of the Bitterroot Mountain Range from where I'm sitting right now. And then in 1882, I believe it was, we had a local resident here, John Stoner, was riding his horse back to town in Missoula, and him and his horse got jumped and attacked by a wild man. Okay, so we've got reports of missing people and, aggressive Bigfoot encounters going back at least 150 years in this part of the country. So, yeah, they're kind of crabby.
God. Well, that David Pilates has written that book, Missing 411, and a lot of people go missing.
Yeah.
How do you find out how many missing people there are? I mean, how do you go about finding out?
That's part of the problem. Like David's pointed out, the Park Service doesn't keep records of it. Or if they do, they're not going to give you the information unless you can, force them or bribe them a ridiculous amount to get it or some stupid thing. But a lot of this stuff is covered up, too. I mean, I've got a friend here in the state of Montana that actually has connection to people that work in forestry. And every so often I'll hear through him, somebody else disappeared and it was over here. And you'll never see it in the paper. Never be on the news.
Well, you know why. It would cause a huge panic. It would cause a panic. They say, well, there would be a whole bunch of people out in the woods looking to hunt them down. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have been out there trying to get one to prove they're just like killing Bigfoot? You just had this discussion.
Yeah.
Who's been successful with that?
Yeah. Well, and the other question is, really, the odds are, and I've got pretty good evidence that this is the case, somebody has actually shot one and drug it in before, and they got the body taken away from them.
I believe that.
I mean, if they show up at a news station or something, there's other people around there that are paying attention to what's going on, And some of them might be working for Uncle Sam and decide to give him a little ringy-jing. Next thing you know, it's gone, and all the news people are told not to talk about it. They want to keep their jobs, so they don't talk about it. But, you've got reports of that going way back in time. Daniel Boone supposedly shot a Yahoo, drug it into Boonesboro, showed the civilian population there was over 100 people at the time, had the thing there for at least a day or two, and then, after that, supposedly they buried it, nobody knows where, yada, yada, yada. But you got reports of peculiar things like that going back, look at how far back Daniel Boone is, and he supposedly killed one, so... And then you got Teddy Roosevelt, who was planning on killing one, thought it was a real animal, had a hunt planned. I would think it was down in Kentucky that he was planning on hunting one down there. I've got some evidence that he may have actually gone on a hunting trip for one up here in Montana, and that's something I'll be covering in the future.
Wow. Well, you know what? We're out of time. I can't believe it, but we are totally out of time.
As far as the Teddy Roosevelt thing, think about this, folks. He started the Park Service. He made most of these gigantic parks. What if he actually knew that Bigfoot was real and he wanted to set aside land to keep him away from the people?
Well, and I don't know if you know this or not, but one of the best places to go research and maybe have an experience is a state park where there is no hunting. And I'm telling you, I think that there's,
if you go through the national parks, the wilderness areas, and all the other parks that are tied together, I could walk out my door right now and walk from here to the Canadian border, which is about 200 miles, and only have to cross 2 roads.
Wow.
That's a lot of woods.
That's a lot of
woods
wood.
and mountains. And all these huge wilderness areas and national parks are all connected. You can walk from the Canadian border right to the city limits of Missoula and only cross 2 very out in the middle of nowhere deserted roads. And that's it. That's how hard it is.
Well, I know that Montana is not very populated compared to other states.
No, it's the 4th biggest state in the country, and it's got a population less than 1 million.
Yep. Boy.
Honestly, I think it makes the Bigfoot more brazen out here because 90% of the sightings that we've had in Montana are during the day, and it may just be that there's not enough humans around here for them to be very overly concerned about us, and they just don't pay attention most of the time.
Wow. Well, Duke, I'm going to tell you something. I really, really enjoyed having you on our show. I would love to have you back. I don't think that you even covered everything.
Oh, no, I can talk nonstop for like 16 hours if you let me go that long.
Well, I don't know if you can or not, but that would be awesome. You know, when we were talking about that empty air, there wasn't none, and I didn't. Normally, I have an intermission. I said, no intermission tonight. This guy, he is hot. He is on the trail.
Yeah, I'm the Bigfoot smart aleck. I'm the official smart ass of Bigfooting.
I thought you were great.
If it was music, I'd probably be like the Frank Zappa of Bigfooting. I've got a sense of humor. Does humor belong in Bigfooting? Yes, it does. You need to have a sense of humor about yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. I'll tell you what, the one word of wisdom that I like to give to everybody that I talk to is that no matter who it is, how long they've been in it, and whatever the credentials seem to be, if you have somebody telling you that they are, in fact, an expert on Bigfoot, you immediately know that they are completely full of crap. Because there is no such thing as an expert on Bigfoot. And anybody that says that they are is trying to sell you a book or something. Run the other way.
Well, everybody, you need to check out Duke's Montana World Bigfoot Radio. And where can they find your shows?
If they want to if they're on Facebook, they can always join my site, Montana Bigfoot Project, because everything new that I do gets posted up there. If they want to go look at the older stuff, I have a YouTube channel, World Bigfoot Radio, that has everything I posted from last year on it. And then this year, I'm just using my channel under my name, Brian Sullivan, and I'm posting everything that I do on there. But I've got a ton of research videos that I've turned out, all from here in the area of Montana, and getting started on the second season of World Bigfoot Radio. We had Jack Tessier from Australia, the founder of ACRO, Australian Cryptid Research Organization, on. And I'm actually going to be having a couple of really big-size guests on, but mostly the focus is Bigfoot around the world, because guess what? It's not just here in North America. So I'm going to be having guests from other parts of the world on talking about this year. So it should be fun.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Duke, and it was great.
You're very welcome.
I really, really enjoyed this interview because you're just fascinating. Very well, you have a lot of knowledge in this subject, and it's actually a blessing to get to talk to somebody who's been doing it this long and really been doing it. I mean, really has been out there studying all aspects of it. And so thank you so much for coming on, and we better tell everyone good night before they decide to shut us off, because it's already... It's screaming. It's not screaming anymore. We're just, I think they give you like 5 minutes, so they're going to shut us off any second.
Well, time is flying. You're having fun. That's a good sign.
Yes,
that's
definitely.
Right. I hope you had fun, because we did. Yeah.
I did, and anytime you ladies would like to have me back on your show again, just get a hold of me. I'd be happy to come back on.
Oh, please, we would. And if you talk to Todd, tell Todd thank you so much for letting us know about you, and we're really glad to have you on. Okay, everybody, say good night.